Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's Stellar Development Foundation quarterly call. We are very excited to have you all on today. We've got an exciting agenda, a lot to cover because SDF and Stellar really had a big second quarter of 2020. Denelle Dixon, our CEO, is going to kick things off in a moment with an announcement about our work with a Fortune 15 company. And she'll also share some other highlights and achievements we've worked towards in Q2. And she'll be joined by Bill Barhydt, CEO of Abra, about the exciting work and products that Abra has been working on and that are powered by Stellar. And Justin Rice, our head of ecosystem at SDF, he's going to provide some details on our technology updates and our overall network performance, as well as share some more about our charitable giving program that we just announced with our ecosystem partner, Lumenthropy. And then our general counsel, Candace Kelly, is going to touch on SDF's growing visibility and our public engagement activities and the work we've been doing to increase our involvement in the policy dialogue. So, like I said, a lot to cover. And of course, we'll leave some time at the end to answer any questions you have about today's presentation or the report that you should have all received just shortly before the call started. And you can submit questions throughout the presentation in the chat box in the chat box marked Q&A in the left-hand corner. So with that, I'm really excited to turn it over to our CEO and Executive Director, Denelle Dixon, for the moment we've all been waiting for. Denelle?
Thank you, Lauren. It's so awesome to be here. Thanks, everyone, for joining the call today. I just really love these quarterly calls. I actually really love going back and reflecting on the quarter that we just had. So I'm really excited to be here, and thank you guys for joining us. So let's get started. First, I'm super excited to announce and to highlight that in Q2, we finalized Stellar's integration into Samsung's blockchain key store. So over the last several months, we've been working closely with Samsung to integrate Stellar, and I'm happy to announce that Stellar end users are now able to securely store private keys on select Samsung Galaxy smartphones. I've been saying this a lot lately, but key management is an important part of how we will drive our technology into the mainstream. And Samsung provides a key management solution that is user-friendly and will ultimately drive greater adoption of blockchain technology because it's so easy to use. It's designed with the user in mind, which is just a really, really important thing that we need to continually focus on in blockchain. This integration is also a significant development for the great ecosystem of applications built on our network. It's going to allow Stellar ecosystem developers to create blockchain apps and services for Samsung Galaxy smartphones, in addition to existing Stellar-based products and applications. It just opens up a whole new network of users that can benefit from the combined innovation of Stellar and Samsung. We already have 4 Stellar-based businesses adopting the required SDKs to make their applications available in the Key Store. This is including DStock and Satoshi Pay, Lightmint, and Nodal. But our work with Samsung isn't going to stop here. We're committed to collaborating to expand and improve the blockchain ecosystem experience for consumers by working with developers who have built on Stellar Network and incorporated the appropriate SDKs into their applications to utilize the Samsung blockchain key store and the integration into their applications. So together, we'll partner in an ongoing effort to recruit, onboard, and support developers in the Stellar ecosystem. It's just the beginning as we work together to empower more developers and users to leverage blockchain in the capabilities presented by this integration. We're really proud of this development, and it's reflective of the growth we're seeing in all aspects of our business. So it's clear that 2020 has been a year unlike any others. Across industries, we've all had to adapt to a new normal. Fortunately for SDF and for Stellar, we're continuing to grow and thrive even during these challenging times. We've grown our capacity and our team. We've brought exciting new leaders onto our board, and we've made strategic advances on every core tenet of our roadmap to creating equitable access to the global financial system. And I'm just so proud of our work in these areas. So I want to just take you through the 3 pillars of our strategy. First, we've talked about our requirement that we foster sustainable use cases. And so we're growing our anchor footprint in regions around the world. We're building product and we're making strategic investments to be able to support this pillar. Second, to ensure the robustness and usability of Stellar. So we've rolled out an upgrade to our core protocol. We've expanded our developer tools. And our network health, when you look at the numbers, is stronger than ever. And Justin's going to go through that in just a few more minutes. And then finally, to be the blockchain that people know and trust. We've fully embraced virtual visibility by making the rounds in virtual conferences and hosting 20 events of our own. Candace is going to share some of those highlights later in the call, in addition to how we're getting more visible with policymakers and regulators. So the TLDR is that we've made significant progress in Q2 on all of our goals. Our strategy seems to be working, and I'm convinced more than ever that our progress is proving out to be a strong year for Stellar. So let me share some proof points. First, let's talk about what we're doing to foster sustainable use cases on Stellar. Anchors are a fundamental part of our network. To facilitate moving value from the traditional banking system into Stellar and vice versa, the network relies on these entities that we call anchors. Anchor services help create a world where the existing financial structure is connected and interoperable with Stellar. So this quarter, we continued our focus on building strong anchors in strategic markets. So this included bolstering the US anchor ecosystem with the addition of Finclusive, which offers compliance as a service and accounts and payment capabilities. We also expanded on Cowry's success in Nigeria, and we're supporting new anchors such as ClickPesa in Tanzania, Anchor MXN in Mexico, and N-Tokens in Brazil. I just can't say how important anchors are. It's an essential function for enabling frictionless movement of value between fiat currencies worldwide. And we're going to continue to expand our anchor footprint in markets where the data indicates that the Stellar network can have an outsized impact, specifically for remittance companies serving businesses and individual lenders and payment processors. We've also been building what we've talked about before, which is our product, a wallet called Vibrant, that saw its beta launch this quarter. Vibrant is a wallet that will soon be generally available in Argentina, where users will be able to hold, share, convert, and send value. It also showcases SEP 30, Stellar Ecosystem Proposal 30, about key recovery mechanism that is very user-friendly. So I encourage you all to check it out, even in the beta form. And then the other important way we've been fostering sustainable use cases on Stellar is by investing in businesses on the network. We made 2 enterprise fund investments in Q2. One investment in Satoshi Pay, a platform for connecting the world through instant payments, and one of the earliest adopters of Stellar. Satoshi Pay expanded their business to tap into a growing B2B cross-border payments market, where there is huge potential for a player like them who has been in this space and knows the opportunities and the challenges. The other investment went to Abra, a next-generation financial platform, which is facilitating Abra's integration with Stellar as its blockchain backend, and Abra's expansion of financial services that will bring new products powered by Stellar. So to share more about this work and the progress they've made so far, I'm happy to introduce Bill Barhydt, the CEO from Abra, to the call. Thanks so much, Bill, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and good morning or good afternoon, wherever you may be. So I'm going to spend 5 minutes just giving you an introduction to Abra's business, and then Denelle and I are going to speak a little bit. So if you'd like to move into the slides for Abra. Just to give you, those of you who don't know Abra, a quick overview of the services we provide. Abra is one of the most successful wallets in the cryptocurrency space today. Although we have users now using Abra for storing fiat and moving traditional money around as well. Hundreds of thousands of users in over 100 countries now. I think we're approaching 150 countries. And we've processing $1 billion plus in transaction volume yearly. The Abra team has executed extremely well over the last couple of years, and we're really excited now to take this to the next level with Stellar, and we're really excited that they've joined our investor base, including American Express and Foxconn and Arbor, a Fidelity-backed fund. So just let me walk you through some of the details on the next slide, if you will, of how this all works. So in order to provide this awesome service that we've had to build lots of capabilities, both what we call our core capabilities as well as our core services for depositing, earning interest, borrowing, investing, and soon paying and spending. And then, of course, all of the back-end capabilities that go into effectively running a fintech financial technology company. Let me walk you through a couple of those now, and go to the next slide. So what everybody knows, of course, in the front end is the ability to invest. As the world's beloved cryptocurrency investing wallet app, we basically work with lots of exchanges and lots of partners to facilitate the buy, sell, hold, and transfer of dozens of cryptocurrency assets, and now lots of assets, and we run a very large liquidity system to allow consumers in lots of countries to get money in and out of the system, both in fiat via the banking system, bank wires, ACH, what most of us in the US would know, as well as cash network, so that folks in, for example, in Southeast Asia, Philippines, or in Central America, like in Guatemala, can actually use cash in their pockets to get money into the Abra app and then withdraw cash from the Abra app. And to do that, we've built a network of retail partners to process deposits and withdrawals into the app. It's a very complex, difficult part of our business, but it's actually growing. It's actually growing faster even than the bank part of our business, which is really exciting. It's been exploding the past few weeks in particular. So that's something we're really excited about. On the next slide, give you if we can go to the next slide. Nope, did we lose our slide?
There might be a slight delay. Are you earn interest?
So I see it. So sorry about that. So yeah, so just to give you a little sneak peek on some other capabilities, this is the interest earning capability that we're going to be launching in the next couple of weeks. This allows consumers, for example, people who aren't even familiar with cryptocurrency, to store dollars and earn significant interest on those dollars, or actually our existing crypto users can earn interest on their deposits as well. We'll be supporting staking currencies to earn interest there, and other currencies over time. So on the next slide, you can see that in addition to just what the interest earning on the front end, we've built a very sophisticated lending system where we have very large institutional partners that are vetted in our risk management processes, and basically borrowing those funds in order to generate high yield for our consumers. And that includes everything from miners, hedge funds, large exchanges, other loan originators. And this is a good segue into what we're working on with Stellar. So if you'd like to go to the last slide, really the next phase for Abra is as I alluded to, for us to take this to another level. Abra is building an entirely new part of our business in order to facilitate the movement of funds globally in real time using the Stellar network. And to do that, and what that will enable for us is all forms of global lending. The first kind of generation of lending that you hear about in the crypto world has to do with people leveraging themselves to go long in crypto, or people borrowing against their Bitcoin or Ethereum holdings. We want to take this to another level and use the Stellar platform to truly enable traditional banking applications at global scale. Trade finance, right? Cross-border P2P loan origination. Loans like that, for example, that are very difficult for people in the West to take advantage of in many cases, we think are totally possible now, leveraging the power of crypto and the Stellar platform. So this is just a quick kind of peek as to what's coming and what we're really excited about to be working on with Stellar. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thanks, Bill. I love the idea of me being the one to ask you questions. I've been on your podcast, so now it's my turn. I get to ask you a few. One of the things I wondered is, we talk a lot about financial inclusion in blockchain, and I just wondered, like, from your standpoint, how is Abra focused on financial inclusion, and what are the, how do you think about that from your business side?
Yeah, that's a great question. We see financial inclusion as basically leveling access and creating a level playing field for access globally, so that somebody in I mentioned Philippines earlier. A farmer in the Philippines, in Mindanao, for example, where we actually have users at Abra, can access the same services in a banking app as an investment banker in San Francisco, which is a place where we also have users. And I think Abra is one of the first companies to really try to create a level playing field across all of these different geographies in a way that doesn't really differentiate from person to person. Obviously, in terms of how people might get money in and out of the system would be different for a cash user in Southeast Asia versus a banked consumer in San Francisco. But other than that, the core services they want in terms of the ability to invest and earn, the ability to borrow, the ability to send and share funds, they're all the same. The amounts might be different, but the ideas and the basics of what they want are effectively the same. And our goal is to enable that globally.
And do you think that in our industry, we're already making strides to really push this notion of financial inclusion forward?
Well, I think it's a mixed bag. I think that there's a lot of people kind of at the bottom of the income pyramid who've done fantastic work in building kind of microfinance services. That's really hard. It's very expensive. It's generally not self-sustaining, with some exceptions. In Mexico and India, I think we've seen some examples of how microfinance can be self-sustaining. But when you move into the middle of the income pyramid, which is where Abra is more focused, it really becomes more about creating a holistic kind of global oriented user experience that most banks don't understand. They focus on bank branches, they focus just purely on compliance. Compliance is obviously very important, but it has to fit in with the user experience. And we're starting to see this in some of these challenger banks, particularly in Europe and in Latin America, that are gaining traction. And that's very encouraging. And I think you're going to see kind of a whole other generation of these challenger kind of services now that are just going to leave the banks in the dust.
Okay, so now I want to move a little bit back to Stellar, and would love to just have your few thoughts about why you selected Stellar and why you thought Stellar was a great entity, a great chain to build on.
Sure. I think for us, we're big believers in leveraging the power of cryptocurrency technology, blockchain technology, and now stablecoins, which has become kind of the flavor of the month, but it's simply a way of leveraging cryptocurrency technology to represent traditional value on a blockchain to facilitate real world banking applications. The first generation of all of this, whether it's the DeFi, which is the flavor of the month, have all been around crypto for the sake of crypto. And that's fine. We needed to get where we are somehow. But we're excited about making this globally accessible for traditional banking applications. Many challenges there. One of the biggest challenges we faced in just the kind of the 1.0 of Abra was scalability. A lot of what we originally built, for example, was built on Bitcoin, and it just wouldn't scale, right? So what we need is the ability to have a platform that can create these stable coins, but can scale to truly global applications in time and space for us in a way that a lot of the first generation platforms could not. And that's where we think Stellar truly shines.
All right. I love that. Now, let me just ask you one more question before we turn it over to Justin. And if you think about the rest of the year and what a strange year it's been, what is the one thing that you would love to see in this space change and develop by year end so that we could actually blow things up in 2021?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of the first generation of stablecoin products have been very US dollar centric. There's a few examples of other things, but I would really like to see some major G10 currencies really go for, or companies, startups, start to develop some G10 currencies beyond the dollar using stablecoin technologies like Stellar or others, and start to see a lot of traction in Forex applications, money transfer, remittances, cross-border business payments that start to take advantage of this ability to do on-the-wire money transfer. If we see that, then we know that we have real proof points for crypto being useful in the quote unquote real world. And I know it's coming. It's just a question of, is it going to happen, in the next few months, the next year, et cetera, et cetera. But that would personally excite me the most. It may sound boring, but that's what it's going to take to make this really useful at global scale.
So awesome. That would be great to see that happen. Thank you so much, Bill, for joining us. And I know that you'll be available afterwards for also questions. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Justin, who's going to walk us through some network stats and other things that he wants to share with us.
Great. Thanks, Denelle. Thanks, Bill. I'm Justin Rice, head of ecosystem at SDF. And I'm super excited to be here to share more about the continued growth of the network and the development of Stellar technology. So Stellar is open source and open participation, and many of the advancements SDF makes are in collaboration with our ecosystem. In these uncertain times when it's clear so many are struggling, we've been asking ourselves, how can we work with our ecosystem to make a difference? Now, of course, we believe the technology we're working on will help address some key underlying issues over the long term, but we also continue to ask ourselves, what can we do to help today? So we've decided that part of our short-term answer is to continue our partnership with Lumenthropy, which is a Stellar-based platform for charitable donations, this time to rally our community to support an organization deeply relevant to today's challenges, the USF Institute for Nonviolence and Social Justice, which is a 501c3 driving research, education, and advocacy to advance the practice of transformational nonviolence. So for the entire month of July, we will match Lumen donations made by our community to the Institute up to 2 million lumens. We kicked off the campaign with a 100,000 Lumen donation, and we're excited to see what our community will contribute to make the world a better, more generous, and more compassionate place. Now, let's take a look at this quarter's numbers and talk a bit about what they mean. So here are some key network stats. We'll sort of go through them quickly. The number of accounts on the network has been stable, hovering around 4.5 million total. We've seen a slight increase in the number of daily operations, up 9% from Q1, and that represents solid network throughput and speaks to the scalability of the network. There was a significant uptick in average daily trading volume on Stellar's decentralized exchange. This quarter, we saw about 5.9 million lumens worth of trades per day, which is a 70% increase from last quarter. The total number of payments has also grown consistently over Q2, 9 million to more than 13 million. As of June 30th, there were 7,893 on-chain assets, which is a lot. I think it's important to note that we're working on a method to distinguish and measure meaningful assets. Those are assets that contribute to the connected financial infrastructure that we're trying to build. Assets very in line with the anchor strategy that Denelle mentioned earlier. And many of these 7,000 plus on-chain assets will be beyond the scope of our area of focus. But one thing is for sure, people find it very, very easy to issue assets using Stellar. Lastly, let's take a look at where the network is in terms of health and decentralization. There are currently 23 tier 1 validating nodes and about 120 nodes total. That's about the same as last quarter. And what we mentioned then bears repeating. The network would continue, it would keep going, even if the SDF turned off all of its nodes. What's more encouraging is that we're seeing more organizations in the pipeline to join the ranks of the tier 1 validators. And that's because there are more businesses invested in the network who want to increase their engagement and are capable of doing so. Those tier 1 validators are fundamental to the health and stability of the network. They're also important to its governance, and they help drive important upgrades to the network, like the adoption of Protocol 13 in Q12. So, Protocol 13. On June 18th, the Stellar Public Network upgraded to Protocol 13. Like all important network-wide settings, protocol version is decided by validating nodes who vote for and agree to new protocol versions the same way they vote for and agree to transaction sets. A protocol upgrade implements a bundle of core advancement proposals, also known as CAPs, and Protocol 13 included 5. The first two, CAP 28 and CAP 30, they're really technical optimizations. One involved pre-auth signers, the other involved operation response codes. We won't get into the nitty-gritty details here, but the key takeaway for those two, they both help Stellar Core and therefore the network as a whole run a little leaner. But what made this release really exciting was the addition of 3 powerful new features. The first is fee bumps, CAP 15, which empower app builders to cover user fees so they can create simpler and better customer experiences. They also allow validators to increase the minimum network fee without invalidating pre-signed transactions, thereby giving them the flexibility to respond to changes in network usage so they can ensure that Stellar continues to function as a fast, efficient, and decentralized system for payments. The second feature in Protocol 13 is fine-grained control of asset authorization, CAP 18, which grants issuers of regulated assets the ability to approve user transactions on a case-by-case basis without canceling open orders on the books. So this optimizes Stellar, so it's a great option for issuing assets with high compliance requirements, like security tokens. And the third Protocol 13 feature is first-class multiplexed accounts, CAP 27, which allows exchanges and custodial services to map a single Stellar account to multiple users without relying on inefficient workarounds. We've learned a lot by talking to some of the larger crypto exchanges, and this change will not only make their lives easier, it will also pave the way for businesses that want to manage client accounts to build on Stellar. In addition to these changes at the protocol level of the network, we've also made some important advancements for developers and businesses on the application level. For example, we introduced SEP 30. Denelle mentioned it earlier. It's a seamless, user-focused solution for key management and key recovery. As Denelle was mentioned then, and when she was talking about Samsung, key management is one of the biggest impediments to user adoption, not just for Stellar, but for crypto generally. And it's also one of the most difficult problems to solve for. Like, keys aren't something you can remember. They're complicated strings of letters and numbers. And in most crypto apps, if you lose your key, you permanently lose access to your account. And that just doesn't work for most human beings. So you can't introduce an app to the general public and grow it at scale if a small human error can cost you everything. There has to be some sort of recourse. I'm not going to get into all the technical details, but SEP 30 solves the problem of key management by leveraging Stellar's built-in multi-sig capabilities to allow a user to easily recover access to an account without ever giving control of that account to a third party. As Denelle mentioned, Vibrant is built on SEP 30, and I tested it last week. All I had to remember to access my account was my phone number. The implications of SEP 30 could be huge, right? It paves the way for a new breed of user-friendly apps on Stellar, and we're really excited to see what businesses and developers can do with it. We also did a complete overhaul of our developer documentation. The docs are now leaner, better looking, and more focused on today's use cases. They're organized around learning paths, and we'll continue to add more learning paths as network use cases evolve. Stellar's always been known for having good documentation, and we kept everything that was working with this new update. We just made it even easier to learn how to build on Stellar. That's it for me. So with that, it's my pleasure to turn it over to Candace Kelly, our General Counsel, to share with you what we've been doing to be the blockchain people know and trust. Candace?
Thanks so much, Justin. It's great to be here. Again, I'm Candace Kelly, the General Counsel. It's really encouraging to see the growth in our network and in the technology. We've also been busy this quarter getting vocal and visible, virtually, of course, in this pandemic time. On the policy front, we became a platform partner in the World Economic Forum's Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. As a member, we're on the Digital Currency Governance Consortium, which is a working group of industry stakeholders addressing key questions and governance gaps posed by new forms of digital currency, including stablecoins. The consortium has a number of working groups, and we're focusing specifically on the digital currency use cases. The working group will assess where digital currency may add value, including a number of areas that are right in our strike zone. For example, the potential for digital currency to replace cash, particularly in pandemic times, issues related to the need for lower cost remittances and cross-border payments, financial inclusion, money laundering and strengthening of AML/CFT capacities, domestic and cross-border regulatory oversight and coordination, monetary control, and central bank digital currencies. And since, as Justin just mentioned, Stellar was designed for stablecoins and CBDCs, we find that it's very easy to issue assets on the Stellar network. We're looking forward to see how we'll advance this important work of the World Economic Forum. And then to strengthen SDF's capacity to join more policy discussions and forums like the WEF, and to raise awareness for Stellar within the policymaker and regulatory spheres, we also hired a new head of policy and government relations, who's focused primarily on engagement in DC, but he's already getting up to speed on policy issues that reach well beyond our borders as well. But we haven't just been getting vocal with policymakers. We devoted a lot of Q2 to both joining and hosting virtual events. We participated in 8 industry events. We ran a Stellar Foundation session at Consensus Distributed, where we shared the vision of Stellar in 2020 and also highlighted businesses built on Stellar. Both Jed and Denelle were on stage at Blockdown 2.0. Jed was on a mastermind panel on interoperability, and Denelle delivered a keynote on her favorite topic of the moment, key management. Denelle also presented to a global audience of entrepreneurs at Road to TiCon in June. We also focused on expanding our own capacity to host virtual events, which resulted in a total of 20 events. We had 16 in English and we had 4 in Spanish throughout the quarter, ranging from webinars, workshops, roundtables, engineering talks. And some of the highlights include a webinar on Anchor Basics, the business and benefits of being an anchor, a webinar on compliance and the Stellar Network, supporting our announcement of our partnership with Elliptic, an engineering talk on Kelp, which is a free customizable open source trading bot for the Stellar Universal Marketplace, and a roundtable discussion on ecosystem standards for creating payment corridors, which ultimately resulted in the creation of STEP 31, which is helping anchors in the network sending and receiving transactions, which is a tool that helps them to comply with the travel rule. In addition to our aggressive efforts in the communications front, SDF executed a series of paid marketing initiatives to further awareness and understanding of the Stellar network. Our 2 speaking appearances at the Consensus Distributed Conference were complemented by sponsorship activation within the virtual conference, as well as within CoinDesk podcast series. Additionally, SDF advertised on the Unchained podcast hosted by Laura Shin, and we've also begun testing the effectiveness of online search and display media. We also started preparations for our biggest virtual event of all, which is our 2nd annual Stellar Conference, Meridian. Meridian is set for November 16th through the 20th. And in the context of the ongoing pandemic, we've decided that the event will be held virtually and it will be free of charge. The theme of the event is Global Connections to Solve Real-World Challenges. Stay tuned for updates like speaker and program announcements by signing up at meridian.stellar.org. So that's it for me, Lauren. I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Candace, and thank you, everyone. We're now ready to open it up to Q&A. So if you have questions, please submit them in the chat box in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. It looks like we already have one that we can kick off with. Denelle, I think this one is probably best suited for you, is to what extent has SDF's work been impacted or not by the pandemic?
Oh, that's such a great question. And it's such a hard question because, as you can see by what we've done in Q2, during the heart of the pandemic, I think we've done awesome work. And I'm so grateful for all of our team members who've spent so much of their time focused on the work, even in a time when there's so many other things in the world to focus on. So we've kind of nailed it in terms of the work that we've done, but I can't pretend that this hasn't impacted SDF in particular, just because, or SDF in addition to our the Stellar ecosystem. From an SDF standpoint, we were open to remote already. We had lots of employees that were working remotely. And so this has just broadened that and made it so that we're all working from our homes and in our home offices and really, I think, doing a great job working together. But I have to say, like, it's hard. And I think everybody's experiencing this all around the world, that it gets hard when you don't have as much human contact as you're used to. So we really are trying to focus on getting folks to step away from their computers and to have some of their personal and alone time so that they can really like fuel what they need to fuel in their life so that they can still give back to us, but also to their families. I will say that I think that we're very mindful that even though SDF, I think, has been pretty strong and done some really great work and we're stable in terms of our financials, there are others in the ecosystem who have been impacted. So we keep a really close eye on how the ecosystem is doing, just to make sure that we have an understanding and that we can do what we can do to support the ecosystem with respect to any kind of work that we can do, documentation we can provide to make things seamless and easy. So all told, I think we've done a fairly good job of really staying focused during this, but I can't deny that it's just hard. I think it's hard for all of us.
Thanks, Denelle. I think the next question we have that came in here is for Bill at Abra. So I think, you know, we made the announcement back in May about how you're going to be using Stellar. And so maybe you could explain kind of what's happened from May to now.
Sure. So this is happening in phases for us. Yes, we are. Our goal is to build a series of global banking services, which also take advantage of the Stellar network. And the first phase for us is our lending business, and that's already launched, where we're basically building relationships with lots of institutional players who will be partnering with Abra in the lending space. That tends to be stuff that we don't necessarily announce, but is essential for building up liquidity in our network. And then the technology part of this is something that we'll be working on mostly in the second half of this year. And then the launch of that will also is actually related to the question Denelle just answered. to the state of the kind of the lending markets because of COVID. For example, if we're looking at cross-border P2P loan origination, for example, or cross-border trade finance applications, a lot of what we end up doing from a risk management perspective will depend upon the state of the markets. And this is the goal here is to, and this is the second part of your question that I see, Benjamin, is to extend what's working in DeFi way beyond just crypto for the sake of crypto, but really to make it truly useful in traditional finance applications. My favorite is cross-border P2P loan origination, because this means that loan originators, there are many P2P loan originators, for example, now who are well-funded in Southeast Asia, Latin America, but they have to source capital locally, and it's often very expensive because the traditional banks won't play. And by opening that up to other forms of capital, that means that we can eventually drive the rates down for small business and individual loans in those emerging markets. And I think that leveraging stablecoin technology, for example, to be able to move that money around very quickly is an essential part of enabling that over time, because we just can't do it fast enough via the banks.
Thank you. So I think the next question we've got here is for Denelle. You mentioned having a growing anchor footprint. What's been the driver behind getting more anchors on board, and do we have a goal for the number of anchors that we would ultimately get to?
So anchors are my next favorite topic, and SEP30 and anchors are kind of close in terms of the needs and the value that anchors and then also key recovery bring to the network and just to blockchain generally. Having financial institutions on the network and creating corridors so that businesses and individuals can benefit from these cross-border transactions is just crucial for the success of the Stellar network. And so the driver has been very clearly that we need them. And the other driver has been demand from, we have corridors that are already open, and then we have demand from some of the anchors to say, hey, we would love to have, another anchor on the other side in Brazil, for example, or another anchor on the other side in Mexico, so that we can actually have those transactions go back and forth. So it's the increasing volume on the network, the increasing requirements that we see to open up more and more corridors that are driving the need for anchors. But this is just a really important part of what we need to do. And what I see our value add to the network is, from an SDF standpoint, is that we can help these financial institutions to be able to integrate and to seamlessly operate with the network and with the other players on it. And I don't look at this in terms of numbers, because I think that it's more important that you think about it in terms of corridors being open. So we're actually working now to determine what we're doing our Q3 OKRs right now to determine what we want to see in terms of growth. But I'm not going to lie, I would love to see like 10, 20, 30 more anchors on the network in the next 6 months. Now, that's just a huge number to bring on, but it would just be fantastic to be able to see more and more corridors open up, so that we can have more and more room for other businesses to join and participate in what we see as just a growing ecosystem.
Thanks, Denelle. I think the next question here is probably for Justin. Justin, are there any technical advancements like future caps or SEPs that you anticipate that are in the works?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are several. I'll talk about some of the most important ones. Protocol 14 is well underway, and it involves 2 caps that introduce also new great features. Cap 23, which introduces claimable balances. They allow sending a payment to an account that is not yet prepared to receive it. And Cap 33, which introduces sponsored reserves, essentially allowing an app to cover user reserves so users don't have to understand or manage a Lumen balance. Both these things work together to basically make it so that you can build apps that manage all of the sort of crypto aspects of Stellar and conceal the complexity of crypto from users. So people can build payment apps that look and feel like payment apps rather than like crypto payment apps. And those 2 will be part of Protocol 14, which is in the works. And once it's done, we'll sort of start rolling it out and working with the ecosystem to get the network upgraded. Well underway. The second sort of big one that we're working on, and we've been working on for a while, is a SEP, again, a sort of ecosystem level solution for a problem that many people building on Stellar face. This one is called SEP31. And essentially, it's designed in conjunction with some current anchors. It enables two anchors to interoperate to pass required information and makes it so a user can send fiat from their bank account directly to the recipient's bank account. Again, this conceals sort of the complexity of crypto from users. And it also allows these anchors to comply with the travel rules. So they comply with an important regulation that requires financial institutions to share certain info about parties involved in a transaction. And SEP31 is like a spec that has been worked out. And in fact, we just added SEP31 functionality to Polaris, which is a reference implementation that people can use so that anchors can set this up really easily. I'd say those are the two big things.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, I think we have another question that came in here, and this one I think is for Bill. So I think some people saw the news about the announcement of the settlement you had with regulators yesterday, and just general question about whether you anticipate any impact from that on your business.
Sure, that's a good question. Back in, I believe, in the November-December timeframe, and we've long since moved on in our business. So basically, for the last 7 months, the business that we've been running had basically been post those agreements. So it just happens to have been yesterday that the SEC and CFTC made the announcements. We actually have no visibility as to when they're going to do that. It's kind of a black. That was just a coincidence. And as I said, Abra has long since moved on. I'm not allowed to comment on the content of the agreements, except to say, we're fine with how we are. Our business in the US in particular is doing really, really well. And we're really happy with how things stand. So no concerns. Great.
Thank you very much for sharing that. And I think we have one last question coming in here, and it's for Candace. Candace, what kind of policy objectives are you looking to achieve by engaging in DC and with like the World Economic Forum, as you mentioned in your part of the presentation?
Thanks, Lauren. That's a good question. I think this is a really exciting time in the policy world of cryptocurrency. I will say that I think that the announcement of Libra last year, and then the pandemic and the discussions around digital dollar and getting stimulus checks out in a secure and efficient way has really raised the profile and the interest level on the Hill and in DC with both regulators and policymakers in terms of first just understanding what it is. I think that there were a lot of folks who were quite well educated on cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, but there are a lot who are still getting up to speed on that. And there's an urgency and an interest in doing that, which makes it really a great opportunity for us. And I think that Stellar, the SDF as a nonprofit, is in a unique role in that we really hope to be able to be a credible voice in just helping in that education department. And obviously it starts with education and then participation. Having somebody now, a full-time person who can really focus on these issues is fantastic. And then advocacy is the ultimate goal. So both within DC, and then as I mentioned, it's impossible with the global nature of our business and this technology to not be jumping into conversations in all different jurisdictions as regulators across the globe are trying to figure this out and take advantage of blockchain in a safe and compliant way. So the World Economic Forum is one way that we're doing that, but we're also engaging with anchors and partners across the globe in making sure that we are being helpful in both educating and advocating on the policy front.
Great. Well, I think that is all the questions we had. Thank you to our speakers for joining today. If anyone on the call has follow-up questions, feel free to email us at media@stellar.org. And thank you everyone for joining us today.